Okay, you damn bastard. I'll be dying first. Let me see your best shot.
Yep, this crazy guy with the 1980s hairstyle is none other than Megumi Fushiguro. He's the guy who keeps an indifferent face on for most of the anime. Seeing him show any other emotion besides discontent and stress is like finding a four-leaf clover. But when he's needed in any way, he changes completely from being what we call an introvert to a forthcoming and authoritative leader. In this video, we'll be looking at what makes him so likable and trying to figure out just what this guy's head is filled with. 1. Serious and reserved demeanor. Suppose you've watched any episode of Jujutsu Kaisen in which Megumi had screen time. In that case, you'll see his stoic expressions and lack of engagement in those conversations that are unnecessary to the mission, as he'd say. Yuji and Nobara would be poking fun at Gojo Sensei's antics, and all the while Megumi would be standing by with a face that would scream, "Why am I even here?" Modern psychology has a lot to say about this kind of behavior, but the most recognized and agreed upon fact is that people who generally tend to keep to themselves enjoy solitude and reserve their emotions. Megumi feels that if he wears his emotions on his shoulders, then that would just become another weakness for his enemies to target. It could be taken as a form of training for him. If he's able to successfully block out and endure the foolishness of his buddies, then he can just as well repress his emotions in an actual fight. His seriousness doesn't only stop at ignoring the dumbness of people around him though. This guy has a heart of steel, as we say. Remember in the Fearsome Womb arc when he was forced to fight against the special grade Curse Finger Bearer? We thought Megumi had it completely under control up until he got walloped in the head and sent flying into the wall. In the anime, we saw a moment before the punch connected and then saw the aftermath in which Megumi comes back from being unconscious, asking how long he was out cold. Once, Yuji and Gojo Sensei invaded his room on the premise of spending time to get to know each other better, and let's just say Megumi was not into the idea one bit. While Gojo Sensei and Yuji kept nagging him about letting them stay in his room and all, Megumi was constantly showing his discontent and desire to be left alone, at least in his room. After a mission, Yuji and Nobara showed how excited they were to go eat some sushi to the point where even Gojo Sensei showed his enthusiasm. But surprise, surprise, when Megumi was asked if he was excited too, he just kept scrolling on his phone with no reply, showing how reserved he liked to be. 2. Strong sense of duty. Now, with seriousness comes a strong sense of duty, and Megumi did not like to be benched for any reason whatsoever. He believed that his powers and skills were vital in missions, and wanted to carry out the most difficult objectives so that the others would have an easier time, while he did the heavy lifting. In the battle against Dagon, Maki, Naobito, and Nanami were taken into his domain expansion, and things seemed all but lost up until Megumi arrived. Megumi felt that he was needed in the fight for the Jujutsu sorcerers to have a chance at success. Otherwise, the guaranteed hit would take them all out. So, once he forced his way into the domain, he stood firmly on his feet and used his own domain expansion technique to counter Dagon's. Here, his duty was to stay on his feet and open an exit as fast as possible for the sorcerers to escape. But wait! His dutifulness doesn't stop there! In the Shibuya incident, he expressed his desire to be on the battlefield and was a little put off when he was told to be on standby outside the curtains. But once he was tasked with taking it down, he and Yuji switched on their work mode and headed to fight Awasaka, Jiro, and Granny Ogami, who were the protectors of the veiling device. Let's leave the devastation that they inflicted on Awasaka as a story for another time, since the defeat was very embarrassing for the old man. Because of how he was conditioned as a young kid, Megumi felt that he must always stand up for the weak and be merciless to the ones who extorted them. He had his own way of life and was religiously following it up until the introduction of Yuji as Sukuna's vessel. As a child, he had a very troubled upbringing, much like the origin stories of most quiet anime characters. His sense of duty took root when he had to fight bullies to protect the innocents in his school. He felt that people who were given power were supposed to use it to protect the weak, and he displayed that ideology perfectly when he was shown sitting on top of a pile of unconscious bodies of all the bullies in his school. Dutiful people often tend to act loyal to the instructions given to them without having the freedom to make their own choices. In some way, Megumi was also bound by this mindset because of his strong sense of duty. 3. Protective instinct. The next big bit that makes up Megumi Fushiguro is his protective instincts. This boy would be in a fight where he'd be focused on saving everyone he could when protecting others was not even considered an option. In the fight with Awasaka, when Yuji thinks that hitting him continuously will eventually wear him out and create a crack in his defenses, Megumi pulls him back with his cursed spirits and saves him from potential burnout or worse, death, because of some unknown ability that they were fighting. Even in the finger bearer fight, when Yuji saw a corpse that he wanted to return to a person waiting outside, Megumi pulled him back. He said that he had no interest in saving the life of someone he had no intention of saving in the first place. You know, you sounded like a blatant hypocrite there, Megumi. I mean, if that's really the case, then why would you raise your voice against the verdict passed for the execution of Yuji? This just shows his innate protective instinct. Going back to when he was younger, he used to beat up the bullies in his school for picking on girls and the weak. Most of his personality had been developed then due to the harsh nature of the world that he lived in, and his tendency to protect others, just because he could, began to show. Even when Yuji tells Megumi to retreat with Nobara while he fights the finger bearer cursed spirit, Megumi decides to go call for help. However, only Ichichi-san was present at the time, and he didn't want an innocent to get hurt, so he told him to retreat as well and send a grade A sorcerer to help get them out of the mud. Modern day psychology speaks of how people have this kind of sixth sense when it comes to knowing where danger is afoot, and Megumi is a cautious individual who pays close attention to every little detail around him. Some would say it's kinda nerdy, but it's the difference between life and death. While fighting Awasaka, Yuji kept hammering endlessly at him, dealing no damage at all. While the meathead was wondering why his punches couldn't even scratch an old man, Megumi's instincts kicked in, and after closely observing the enemy, he realized the one weakness and quickly shared it with Yuji, after which they managed to beat the poor old guy senseless. 4. Pragmatic and strategic. Now, I wouldn't call Megumi optimistic per se, but he wasn't one to believe in maybes and possiblies. In moments where others would rely on having a positive mindset and hoping for the best, Megumi's mind would snap to thinking about what the best course of action would be to secure success with minimal losses in the fight. Adaptation to current situations is something that he excels in, with people often thinking highly of him due to his intelligence and age. If he's this smart as a kid, imagine how formidable he'll be once he's older. His sharp mind and skillful planning allowed Yuji and the others to successfully escape from the finger bearer cursed spirit in the fearsome Woomark and leave Yuji alone to switch with Sukuna, as it was the only way to defeat the finger bearer at the time. His thoughtfulness of evacuating everyone so Yuji could let loose even won them the fight. Like a careful chess player, Megumi makes small advances on his enemies with every technique that he uses to increase his chances of victory. Consider the time that he summoned his max elephant for the first time during his fight against Noritoshi in the Goodwill event. But he couldn't just take Noritoshi outside, so when he was about to attack Megumi, he used the max elephant to flood the hallways with enough water so that he was forced outside and made to fight in a wider area. Another one of his moments was when he fought against Hanami against Maki. When Maki revealed that the spirit could not be damaged with ordinary cursed tools, he pulled out the 3-section staff and gave it to her. Although she was unfamiliar with the new tool, she quickly adapted to it and revealed that the branches sprouting from the eyes of the cursed spirit were its weak points, because it winced when they were cut. Throughout the fight, Megumi used all his Shikigami in tandem while attacking Hanami with Maki, but later got overpowered. The real takeaway from this fight was that Megumi allowed himself and Maki to hold out long enough for Yuji and Todo to arrive to take over the fight and get the two wounded sorcerers to safety. According to modern-day psychiatrists, 5% of the population is considered strategically minded, and out of those people, only 2% take risks that most people would shy away from, and this is exactly what our lovely, uptight Megumi does. 5. Conflict with morality. Let's look at a fictional scenario. You've got insane powers that you can use to summon some of the deadliest cursed spirits known to man because you've inherited the 10 Shadows technique from your bloodline. You can use them to save as many people as possible or to destroy those who you think deserve it. The moral conflict is there, and Megumi has a similar conflict in his brain, only he must fight between saving everyone unequally, as he mentioned in his conversation with Sukuna, and saving everyone in general. Although he may appear to be cold-hearted and merciless in his exorcism of cursed spirits, he would hesitate at times when he was faced with the option of sparing them because they were the result of human suffering and not evil rituals. To kill or not to kill? His job as a Jujutsu sorcerer was to eliminate any and every kind of threat the cursed spirits posed to the world. But as a human, he could sympathize with the feelings of betrayal and helplessness that the spirits who were born from human suffering expressed. Before meeting Yuji, he held on to his ideals and morals strongly. Exercising spirits was necessary, and that was what he was taught all along. But when the matter of Yuji's innocent life being sacrificed to eliminate the king of curses, Sukuna, came up, he questioned himself, and after a clash of morals in his mind, he decided to voice out his opinion and say that Yuji did not deserve to be killed because sacrificing an innocent life was unnecessary. Megumi sometimes questions the methods employed by his school, Jujutsu High, in dealing with curses and cursed objects. The school's strict and ruthless approach to handling curses can clash with Megumi's own moral compass, leading to internal conflicts about the best way to achieve their goals. Throughout the anime, Megumi deepens his bonds with his two closest friends, Yuji and Nobara, and during the Shibuya arc, when he parted ways with Yuji, he tells him to not die before him. That's an awful lot to ask from the meathead who punches first and asks questions later. Anyways, Megumi ended up being the one at death's door when cornered by Shigemo while injured. As the Ten Shadows user, he had sworn not to summon his deadliest Shikigami until he had tamed it. But since it seemed like this was the end for him, he went against his moral rules and summoned him anyway. It would have ended in complete bloodshed if not for the convenient intervention of Sukuna. Thanks a lot, bud. 6. Loyalty and camaraderie. Now, coming to the topic of loyalty and friendship, Megumi was the last person to uphold these values at the beginning of the anime. He was a man of principles. Said principles are doing things his own way while staying loyal only to his mentor, Gojo-sensei. It was only after he met the other characters and went through different struggles that he developed his newfound sense of loyalty to his friends. In the series, Megumi forms close bonds with other students at Jujutsu High, particularly with the main protagonist, Yuji Itadori, and the third main character, Nobara Kugisaki. Despite initial differences in their personalities, they develop a strong sense of camaraderie and mutual trust as they face various challenges and battles together. The big three would then become the much-loved trio that everyone on the internet would adore. Megumi was the smartest one out of the three, so he felt that he had to make sure the two wouldn't fall into any kind of trouble while he was looking away, which somehow they still managed to do. One of the filler episodes is worth mentioning as well because it shows his loyalty to the two as their close friend. When Ozawa comes to visit Tokyo, she's met by Nobara, who soon learns that she's an old classmate of Yuji's. She also claimed to have a huge crush on him because of his kindness back in their school days. Naturally, Nobara wanted the two to meet up. He called up Megumi to help her out. Although he showed his annoyance, he still showed up and participated in getting the two to meet up, even showing his pride in Yuji when he remembered Ozawa instantly. Megumi's loyalty extends beyond his immediate circle of friends to his commitment to the mission of eliminating curses and protecting people from supernatural threats. His dedication to Jujutsu High's goals and principles is a driving force in his character development. Even though the school's way of doing things go against his own morals at times, he still manages to fulfill all the necessary requirements of any deployment as he feels a sense of loyalty toward the person who took him in. As the series progresses, Megumi's loyalty and camaraderie are tested in the face of increasingly powerful curses and formidable adversaries. The bonds he forms with his friends and allies become crucial in overcoming these challenges, and his character development explores themes of trust, sacrifice, and the importance of standing together in the face of adversity. 7. Complex past and family dynamics. If we start to talk about how complex and messed up our boy's family history is, it will just leave you with more unanswered questions than you started with. Megumi Fushiguro comes from a family with a long history of practicing jujutsu, a form of Japanese martial arts dealing with curses and supernatural entities. His father, Toji Fushiguro, was a powerful and ruthless jujutsu sorcerer, known for his pragmatic and unconventional methods. Toji, however, rejected the traditional jujutsu lifestyle and chose to live a more independent and carefree life. Megumi's mom had died right after childbirth, and Toji wasn't interested in raising his own son because of the life he lived. After leaving Megumi to fend for himself, he was waiting for the day to come when he could eventually sell off his son to the Zenin Clan so that he'd have a better life, one that Toji could never hope to give him. But we all know how that plan turned out. Due to his father's unconventional approach and his mother's death, Megumi grew up in a challenging environment. Despite his father's disappearance from his life, Toji's powerful jujutsu abilities were passed down to Megumi, making him a talented and skilled sorcerer. Megumi's past becomes a significant aspect of his character development in Jujutsu Kaisen. As the series progresses, Megumi's relationships with his father, his mother's mysterious departure, and the impact of his family dynamics are explored, contributing to his growth as a jujutsu sorcerer. He still believes that his father is alive and living well somewhere in the world, so he wants to duke things out and one day be able to face his father directly and ask him why he did what he did to his mother. Conversely, Gojo Sensei has his own plans for Megumi because, even though we know what happened to Gojo Sensei, Gege has said that his part in the anime is not over, primarily because Gojo still must tell Megumi that he was the one who killed his father. Megumi's character is also affected by the lack of any parental figure in his life. Even real-life psychology studies show that less communication and no support can lead to a more difficult lifestyle for children. 8. Growth and development. As mentioned before, adaptation is something that Megumi had learned to do the hard way, and he was amazingly good at it too. At the very start of the anime, we saw only a few of his Shikigamis because he was still in the process of taming all of them. But as the series progressed, we saw more and more of his abilities. He even managed to create a domain expansion technique, although imperfect, in his fight with the Finger-Bearer Cursed Spirit. With every fight, he learned something new and carried that over so his enemies would have a lot more trouble beating his ass than before. Megumi is initially introduced as a reserved and stoic first-year student at Tokyo Metropolitan Jujutsu Technical High School. His primary motivation is to save people, rooted in a traumatic childhood incident involving a cursed spirit. During the early arcs of the series, Megumi struggles with the weight of responsibility and his own perceived shortcomings. Even interacting with other people was a challenge for Megumi, as he liked to be left alone and didn't like talking much. It was only after being forced to watch over Yuji that he began to pen up and develop a deeper bond with him. It was also funny to watch when Nobara joined the trio, and during the time that she was settling in as the third main character, Yuji and Megumi had moments together that showed how close they had gotten. Megumi receives guidance and mentorship from experienced jujutsu sorcerers such as Satoru Gojo and Toji Fushiguro. These mentors play a crucial role in Megumi's development by imparting valuable knowledge, techniques, and life lessons. The old Megumi would prefer going in fights alone and having a sort of lone wolf mentality, but now he knows that there's strength in numbers and even greater strength in bonds, so he would rather face difficult enemies alongside his comrades than face all the burdens alone. 9. Connection with Sukuna's fingers. Who would have thought that there'd be a connection between the 10 Shadows user and the King of Curses, Sukuna? Well, there would have at least been a hunch. In the series, we saw how Sukuna had expressed his interest in Megumi more than once. He treated him like some kind of fruit, waiting for it to ripen completely before consuming it. The first encounter that he had with Sukuna was when Itadori had been taken over for a while, and he came face to face with the king. A curse with no regard for human life would have killed Megumi right there and then, but he let him off by saying, "You're still growing." What's worth noting is that Megumi's domain expansion was without a barrier, and the only other person to have this kind of expansion was Sukuna. This intrigued him way further and sprouted a lot of discussion online about the potential similarities between the King of Curses and Megumi. Not only that, but Sukuna even fought the most dangerous and bloodthirsty of Megumi's Shikigami, Mahoraga, so that he could save him and let him live a little longer because apparently he had a job for him to do, and he couldn't die just yet. That job has since then become apparent, as in the recent manga chapters. We're seeing Sukuna brutally take over Megumi by throwing him further and further into despair. Megumi tried to fight back, but psychology says that if you break a man's mind, you break the man himself. And that is the exact technique that Sukuna was using. We'll have to wait and see if Megumi survives this torment or not. 10. Internal struggles. Throughout the anime, Megumi must not only meet the expectations of his mentors and friends, but he also must meet the standards that he set for himself. He has a constant battle going on in his mind because of the different ideologies that he holds. Megumi carries a heavy sense of responsibility due to a traumatic childhood incident involving a cursed spirit attacking his family. This event has left a lasting impact on him, shaping his motivation to become a Jujutsu sorcerer and save people from curses. However, this responsibility also brings with it the burden of mastering his 10 Shadows technique. Otherwise, they may go rampant. Despite his skills as a Jujutsu sorcerer, Megumi often struggles with feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. He questions his own abilities and whether he is strong enough to protect others. This internal conflict is common among many shonen protagonists and adds a layer of vulnerability to Megumi's character. Megumi hails from the prestigious Zenin family, a powerful and traditional Jujutsu sorcerer lineage. The family has high expectations for its members, and Megumi feels the weight of these expectations on his shoulders. His internal struggle involves reconciling his own values and goals with those imposed by his family. The possession of Sukuna's fingers by Megumi's family introduces a unique internal conflict, as he grapples with the responsibility of protecting and controlling these powerful cursed objects. Megumi must also navigate the potential dangers they pose, and the dark history tied to his family's collection of such artifacts. Megumi's difficulty in trusting others and forming meaningful connections is an internal struggle that evolves throughout the series. Initially reserved and stoic, he learns to open up to his fellow students, Yuji and Nobara, forming strong bonds. However, trust remains an ongoing internal theme for Megumi. Megumi wrestles with questions of morality and justice, particularly in the context of the Jujutsu sorcerer world. Megumi's sense of justice is relatable to real-life case studies on the psyche of such people, saying that justice is a human virtue that makes a man self-consistent and good. And that was our in-depth look into the mind of the serious and strong-willed Megumi Fushiguro. We hope you enjoyed our analysis of his persona. Do leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing anime content. Let us know in the comments which character you'd like us to cover next. Until then, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!